Hello everyone. This video is going to be about our latest and most comprehensive update so far, update 2.30. It's packed with features, many bug fixes, and lots of performance improvements. This is one of the most awaited update primarily because it features consisting in a simple and intuitive way. So let's get started. First thing you will notice is that the overhaul of look and feel. We are now using small image icons to represent various actions. As you will notice, each action now has a meaningful icon that helps identify the action and is also pleasing to the eye. You will also notice the little trash icon that meant remove from network and was present next to the manage button on the main screen has been moved here in the tools actions menu to provide more real estate on the main screen. The engineer has an icon that will be replaced with a customizable picture in the future. You will also notice that the main menu has also icons associated with it. Let's take a look at the dashboard now. Here you will see the Loco name has an icon next to it with an appropriate background color, red, orange or green. Red indicating the app is behind the firmware version and is strongly recommended to upgrade. Orange means the Loco needs a firmware upgrade that is recommended but urgent, and the green means all is good. So in this case you see the little Loco with the green background. Now the dashboard start button is now green. Previously red was sometimes confused with emergency stop. So in fact we have an emergency stop button that is red and it can be seen in the bottom left hand corner. We'll talk about emergency stop in a moment. The status indicator on the right of the start and shutdown button is orange instead of green. The speedometer and tachometer used to appear differently on different devices. Now they have a more consistent look and feel. There is also the dashboard menu which also has icons associated with it. Next we have consisting, the most important update of them all. As you will see on the main screen for UP GP39 to 1232, that's how a consist is represented. The UP is the lead and all the others below are helpers. As you must have already noticed in the main menu, there is a new menu item called create consist, and that we will talk about later. Now for a consist, the lead Loco name has a multi-Loco icon indicating a consist. You can see that, and if we long press on that, you can see all the names of the helpers in the consist. Well, this is only an introduction to consisting. However, we are going to talk about consisting in detail in a separate video, the link for which can be found in the description below. So let's talk about the other features. Emergency stop. We talked about it briefly earlier. It's the little red button labeled emergency stop in the bottom left hand corner. Now when the Loco is moving, pressing this button will bring the Loco to a stop immediately. Not only that, pressing it again will resume it. This feature, as the name implies, needs to be used in emergency situations only. We do not want it touched accidentally. Now there is a chance that while holding the phone in a certain way or swiping across the screen or performing any other action might trigger it. Therefore, we have made it a pressure sensitive setting. What that means is that we can define the pressure that will activate it. This also falls in line with the fact that in the case it's an emergency, we tend to hit it really hard and fast. So let's see it in action with various pressure settings and how we can configure the pressure itself. Here we have our Loco on the tracks. I'm gonna set it rolling and press on the emergency stop. I had to press really hard because the setting was set to a very high value, and pressing it again would resume it. Let me just go back and look at the setting. It says set emergency stop activation pressure, and you'll see that little icon emergency stop. If you press it harder, it sets the value to a higher value. You have to really press hard to activate it. If you demo press it like at a very light pressure, then it would be easily activated. I'm gonna reduce the value down, say 27. Go back, and so this setting is available under the app settings, which is accessible from the main menu. I go back to the Loco again, and the Loco is on the move again. I just tap lightly and it's activated, and this pressing it again will resume it. Please note that not all devices come with the hardware support for pressure. In that case, it acts like a normal touch button. One other important thing to note here is that this feature will work only if there is a Wi-Fi connection. It's no use if the stop command can be communicated to the Loco. In such situations where you can talk to the Loco, what do? Well, one possible solution is you could simply pull the plug. However, what about the dead rail scenario where there is no power to the track and the Loco is not easily accessible or reachable? You take off the track. So that leads us to our next cool feature called auto stop on connection loss that we will talk next when going over the config options. So let's go over the config options now. You may notice that many options have been added, some have been modified or moved. However, not to worry, this is all backwards compatible as before for the most part. And let's go over some of the options. The first on the list is auto stop on connection loss. First of all, it's different from emergency stop. Imagine losing communication to your Loco, be it due to your smartphone battery suddenly dead, or the smartphone switching to a different network, or your Loco out of range, or some Wi-Fi interference, or your router reboots. Whatever the reason may be, this is a mandatory feature for any wirelessly controlled equipment. It's especially true if it's battery powered because you can pull the plug. Now, this is a configurable option. For example, you may want to switch it off if you know that your Loco is entering a tunnel that for sure has a dead Wi-Fi zone. It's not a usual scenario, but we don't recommend not having a signal on some parts of your layout because Wi-Fi signal is the lifeline of LocoFi. Still, it's an option. So let's look at auto stop and connection loss in action. As you can see, the auto stop and connection loss is checked. I'm gonna back up the Loco a little bit at a slow speed and simply exit out of the app. Oh, there you go, it stops. Now let's see if the connection is restored. What happens then? So to restore the connection, you will have to click the manage button again, and there you go, the Loco starts rolling again. So that's that in action. Next on the list is an option that is not visible if connected via an access point or router or your network. It's called lock for direct connection only. It is visible only if connected directly to the Loco. In the case of a direct connection, the Loco itself acts as an access point. It's an open connection and the Loco is available to be added to any network. Now, being on an open network makes them easily discoverable and eligible to be added to any network. However, you don't want someone to accidentally or intentionally steal your Loco while it's in operational control by you. For example, it may happen in a case where you might be operating your Loco independently on a layout using a direct connection, where there might be other locos being operated on a network and someone ends up adding your loco to their consist. So to prevent that, lock your loco for direct connection. Now let's see that in action. So here we have a loco that we will lock for direct connection only and try adding it to a network. So lock loco for direct connection only is the first option. It's even before the auto reverse lights. You can see that. Let's lock it. There's a warning. It says please note that loco may reboot as a result of turning the setting on, which is okay. Okay, go back and let's try to add it to a network. Now we are back to our regular network and we will try to add the GT to our regular network. So we go to add loco. There we go, we discovered it. You say add to network. Let me enter the password here. Say okay, connect. And it says there is a message failed. Loco is locked for direct connection only, so it will not be added to the network. The loco was prevented from being added to this network, the previous network. Now the same is true when trying to add it to a consist. So let's remove the lock and try again. Now we are back to a regular network and we'll try to add the GT again. Enter the password, say okay. So connect. Voila! It added success. As you can see, the loco is now added successfully. It will show up on the main screen. There you have it. Let's go back to the config menu again. Next, this update also features scale speeds for different scales that can be specified under scale. Previously, the scale was implicitly predefined for HO scale only, hence the scale speeds were configurable as well for HO scale only. However, now you can specify an arbitrary scale, not just predefined scale. So, for example, if you install your LocoFi module in an O scale and want to configure scale speeds for it, simply enter 48 instead of 87 in the text box. You can also choose your preference between MPH and KMPH. Please note that these settings of scale and speed units need to be done before setting the speed tables. If you change these settings, make sure you reconfigure your speed tables. More on speed tables later in the separate video on consisting. Next, this update supports scale speeds for various voltages. Yes, that's right. You can now configure speed tables for up to 8 voltages. As you are aware, LocoFi works on a multitude of voltages, which means you can simply take your locos or consist from one layout to another that may all have different track voltages and it will work in all the cases. However, motor speed is proportional to the voltage and as such, going from one layout to another with a different track voltage, the locos will run with different speeds on different layouts. So much for scale speeds that might have set on a particular layout. It's just too cumbersome to first configure a speed table each time you visit a different layout before starting your operating session. But not anymore. Now with the ability to set and store speed profiles for multiple voltages, you don't have to reconfigure the scale speeds. Once configured, all you have to do is switch to the voltage profile for that layout and you are done. To enable this, click on the checkbox Scale Speeds Consisting, which is already checked, and start creating the speed profiles. For example, we got two speed profiles here, one for 12 volts and one for 16.5 volts. Also note that locos in reverse may exhibit a different speed profile. For now, you may want to simply create a voltage profile with a different voltage that represents reverse. For example, we have the 16.5 volt profile for forward, and if you want to create a speed profile for reverse, for example, if the loco is going to be run for a long time in reverse, you can create a 16.6 volt for reverse. In future, we will be adding a feature that will let you create two separate speed profiles for forward and reverse for a given voltage. So if your layout is powered with a supply that can be changed on the fly, you can configure the profiles for your favorite voltages right there. More on this will be shown in the video on consisting. This update features an important aspect of being able to revert the firmware. So I'm gonna exit out of config option and go to about menu here. That is, now you can downgrade your firmware. And you might ask, why would I need that? Well, there may be a case where even after our rigorous testing, a firmware update may not work in some cases. Having the ability to revert the firmware can help you fall back to the older functionality. Each revert takes you back one version. However, upgrading firmware will bring you back straight to the latest. To revert firmware, you just click on the revert and you'll be given a warning, and you say okay, and revert will happen. I'm not gonna do that right now, just to show you. So please note that this does not revert the app but only the firmware in the loco. Also, when switching back to an older firmware, it may be necessary to manually reboot the loco for features that usually require a reboot, like changing the name, add to a network, etc. Switching back to the latest firmware shouldn't require such manual intervention. So other than the key features that we discussed, this update features improved device discovery that is more reliable and faster. Also included is the fix for the broken add loco functionality for Android 10 and greater. Google Android policies had broken that key feature that had prevented a loco from being added to a network. We are doing this demo with Android 11, so as you can see, this is now working. One of the other bug fixes included the fix for RPM that is not tied to speed anymore. It is now independent of speed. Previously, if the max speed was fixed to a lower value, for example for switchers, the RPM would also get fixed to a lower value. The RPM now spans the full range of sound independent of the max speed setting. There's many other smaller bug fixes and performance improvements that are just too much to mention here. Try the new update out and see for yourself. That's pretty much it for this update. Again, don't forget to check out our video on consisting, the most important update that deserved a video of its own. Please find the link for the same in the description below. Thank you.